It's Sunday afternoon. I just put Junior down for a nap. My wife is also taking a nap. And this leaves me to my own devices, so I could do a couple of things. I could probably do the responsible thing and do some yard work or other work around the house. Or I could spend some time and do some hobbying. Clearly, if you see this, you know what I'm chosen to do. And today, I'm going to show you how I make one of my paint holders. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I teach you how I do this. Board games, role-playing games, assembling and painting models and miniatures. These are my hobbies. I'm Howard Blues, one half of the popular podcast Beer, Blues, and BS. And now join me as I rebuild my cave of wonders. Welcome to Howard's Cave of Wonders. I'm Howard Blues, and today I'm going to show you how I manufacture my paint holders. The reason that I have this particular design, to give a little bit of backstory, a little bit of history, if you will, I have a painting desk that I received from my in-laws. It's basically a giant roll-top desk. And for years, I used to keep the paint in the drawers of that desk. And it worked okay. But as I grew and got more and more paint, you know, the drawers got a little bit harder to read and tell which colors were which. And so there was a lot of digging in and all that. Well, in 2018, I took a job with the State Historical Society of North Dakota, managing the Chateau de Mores out in Medora, North Dakota. While it was a wonderful job, my wife stayed here and was living in our condo, and I rented a cheap apartment. And I didn't really have a space. I had a nice sized bedroom in that apartment, and that was kind of my bedroom and my hobby space all in one. I had a small fold-up table, my hot light, which sits above me, and I needed a place to hold my paint. And so I created this system based off some other things I'd seen. So to make one of these paint holders, you're going to need just a few things. You're going to need some cork tiles. These are for me, the Quartet cork tiles. They're 12-inch by 12-inch. One thing to say with this was a project I tried to do on the cheap. And again, no real space to really build a very concrete system. It's what I had. You'll also need these. These are couplers, PVC pipe couplers. And again, I predominantly use Reaper Miniatures MSP line of paint. So for me, I need just a 3/4 size coupler. This will also work for Vallejo paint. I do have a few Vallejos floating around. If you're using anything like Citadel or P3, it's not going to work in those paint pots. I believe that Army Painter is also in the dropper bottles, and that should work too. In fact, I have some Army Painter washes that I believe I have used these on. So keep that in mind. This works for a dropper bottle like this. So sits in pretty nicely. So cork tile, this design requires 85 of these. It'll hold 85 individual paint dropper bottles. So 85 of these. And if you go to your local hardware store, your Menards or your Lowe's even, you can buy a contractor pack of 10 of these at a time. And it's really not that expensive. And again, I'm doing this way. I mean, you could go out and buy a nice set, but this way. And then the other thing that I use are just some basically 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square wooden dowels, or 1/2 inch by 12 inch square wooden dowels. The reason I did this and such was because I'm putting this on a cork panel. I was worried about the strength of the cork to hold kind of all of the weight of this. And so I decided when I built my original ones to reinforce it with this. And it also makes for a nice, easy way to grab basically my paint racks when I need to and such. So it's just something I have continued. As I was able to buy it in this lovely 6-piece set. The last time I had to buy them in the actual like wooden dowels, and it required a bit more cutting. I will have to do a little bit, but not nearly as much with this. And then otherwise, just basically a pencil is great, and a hot glue gun and some hot glue, and that's all we need. So now that you know what I need, let's move over to the desk over there and let's make ourselves a paint rack. So here I have everything kind of laid out, and I even grabbed one of my current paint racks off, because one of the things that I did in my process of creating this was actually to make it so that it kind of overlays a little bit, so that hopefully they kind of interlock a bit. And I'll show a picture of the system kind of complete here now so you can see, but kind of I wanted it to fit in, and I wanted it so it almost would look like one piece, even though it's 4 separate pieces. I will say, as I'm doing this, that the only supplies I really had to go out and buy this time of me doing building this again was the poplar squares and the couplers. I actually had picked up a bunch of these corkboard tiles when I bought them originally. And I did that because cork tile like this also works great as a basing material. So, and so there's that. Although you got to be careful with using it as a basing material, because it gets really easy to just make towers out of this stuff. Open these up, and I only need 4 of these. So, hey, 2 other pieces for future hobby. Or future home repair. I actually, I had a few scrap pieces the last time I did this project, and not gonna lie, I actually used one of those scraps to hold a drain pipe from my HVAC system in the condo up, because it would tend to tilt. So I've laid these out, and here's where a little bit of cutting is going to be necessary, because these are 12 inches long and my tile is 12 by 12. We have a little bit of overlap, so we need to basically trim a 1/2 inch off each side. Or the easier thing, and the thing that allows us to do less cuts, is you cut 1 inch off of one side and it should fit in. This is where a handy pencil comes in. So what I'm going to do, take my 2 that I'm not cutting, just set them like this. Now, I could get really technical. I could get a tape measure. I could measure this out. Sure, perfectly viable tactic. Or in this case, I take my 2 that I'm planning to cut, and I will basically hold them just about square, and we'll just make a general mark. And there we go. So roughly my cut, and I'm okay if they're not 100% lined up. Because I'm using a glue like hot glue, I can use it to fill in the gaps. So I have a couple things to go cut, but I can't do. Well, I could do that down here, but that would make a sawdust mess. So let's go out to the garage. All right, so I've returned. Camera set and ready to go. And we're starting in warming up the old glue gun. So have my boards. As I said, these are going to be basically my backbone of all of this. See how I did with the cutting? Not too shabby for the most part. A little off kind of on this upper end, but that's okay. As I said, we're going to use hot glue. We're going to kind of fill that in. Truthfully, if I kind of try and just square everything up. Beautiful. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. So I'm waiting for my hot glue gun to heat up. I am using Gorilla hot glue sticks. They tend to work the best for me. I'm going to just get a couple out and such. So as that warms up, I'm going to basically lift it up, plop some glue down, and then plop the piece back down as well. I'm actually going to stand up to make sure I can see. Now, these poplar pieces that I'm using seem to be just a tish different in the, like, what they say is 12 inches versus my cork tile. And that'll be okay. I don't really feel the need to try and trim them. So I'll get everything kind of lined up where I want it as best I can. And it's okay if, especially if these inner guys are a little on the end. That's my glue doing. Oh, seeing the first drop going. So let's bring this around. I'm going to start down here. And again, just going to lay out some glue. And then just get my piece into place. And because it's hot glue, I have a little bit of work time, which is why I am working with that on this. Beautiful. Let us go. Do this side. No. I have a bit of a gap here, so I'm just going to kind of gap fill it a little bit. Just kind of push that in. Let it hold. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side here. Just a little bit of. Okay. Now for the crazy part of this. And I'm actually going to unplug my hot glue gun. It's going to take me a bit because I'm going to do some layout. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, I want to do some layout with this. I want to try to figure out where all of the pieces are going. That way, as I glue them on, they kind of follow a bit of a pattern. So basically, this panel is going to be kind of the opposite of this one, so that our panel basically works out. So basically having it, if you'll notice, there tends to be a little bit of overlap. That should end up on a shorter row, so that hopefully this is your overlap row. You have a little bit more room. So now comes the fun part as I sit here and lay these all out. And I think that's a great time for a bit of a time lapse. I will say, I remember from the last time I did this, I'm going to suck up a lot of glue sticks. I'm just going to hedge my bets and have a stack ready to go. So I'm going to basically pick it up, do a loop around the outside, and then as I go, I will apply more glue to the other pieces in there just to kind of help create some support and some bonds and such. Even though in theory this should all rest kind of on itself, I want to just kind of do that to shore it up. Okay, now that I've kind of done all of the individual ones, I want to go around and, as I said, I'm going to start with the outsides, and then I'm going to try to shove some hot glue into the the inner workings of some of these. Again, just trying my best to create some strong kind of bonds between all of these different pieces and layers. So there we go. Now you might notice I have a lot of the kind of spider webbing, and that's an easy thing to just kind of work on, just kind of cleaning out a little bit. But I'm going to call this thing, for the most part, done. And the next thing to do is put it up on the shelf with the others and to fill it with paint. So let's start on that. If you wonder, because I kind of have this rainbow-esque color board, one of the things I try to do with it is I try to keep them somewhat themed. So if you can see, it goes kind of lighter pink, and I try to keep shades and such close. The problem is that with a lot of these paints, there's different tones. So in your greens, you have everything from your olives to kind of your brilliant greens, your Kelly greens, your dark greens, into the turquoise. How do you arrange that is a little tricky. So trying to kind of figure that out pattern-wise, and I guarantee you it'll look really pretty once, and after that once, it will be messed up the first time I do a paint project. So I ended up with some paint left after all of that. That looks great. I have a few, but I also have what I call my utility paints. These are paints that are things like washes, inks, varnishes, things like that. And that stuff traditionally I've kept in a drawer. So these few extra paints are going to go in a drawer with utilities. And that'll be okay. In the right-hand drawer to have this stuff. So we'll just grab the inks first. I think I've said this in another video, but one thing I've always done is anything that is a wash, I tend to put a little black dot on the cap. Just my way of knowing instantly that it's a wash. I don't have my little Sharpie, so just use this big Sharpie and dot these guys up. It'll be okay. As I said, it's just to help me identify when I reach in, hey, this is a wash. All right, here we go. All four done. All four nice and stacked up. You can see there's my new one. Mostly browns, flesh tones, metallics. And again, anything that I didn't finish is down here in this drawer. So there's the few metallics that I could not get to fit. And then all of my utility paints and inks. So all done.